Have you ever stopped to wonder if the holy places mentioned in the Bible still hide secrets? What if I told you that the Sea of Galilee, the same sea where Jesus walked on the water, still holds mysteries that have never been revealed? Yes. One of the places most mentioned in the Scriptures, a scene of miracles, of storms calmed with a word, and of supernatural fishing, continues to surprise to this day. But what exactly is happening there? Why do modern fishermen report events that seem to come straight from the pages of the Bible? Some say the Sea of Galilee hides something much bigger than just stories of the past. Recent reports bring to light inexplicable sounds during the early hours of the morning, lights appearing beneath the waters, and spiritual sensations so intense that they make even the most skeptical people reflect. We are not just talking about faith. We are talking about possible living evidence that there is something supernatural, perhaps prophetic, still at work in that very place where the disciples feared and where the Son of God revealed his glory. For centuries, theologians, archaeologists, and believers have turned their eyes to this sacred place, trying to understand why so many biblical events took place there. Could the Sea of Galilee be a portal to something greater? A point of contact between heaven and earth? Or are there hidden structures beneath the waters that human eyes have not yet been able to decipher? As we delve into the mysteries of the past, we are confronted with the most disturbing questions. Why does this place still generate so much spiritual impact? What does the Bible reveal to us about this very symbolic scenario? And most importantly, what are fishermen witnessing these days? Get ready, because what you're about to discover could transform the way you see the lost places mentioned in Scripture. The Sea of Galilee may not just be a chapter in biblical history, but perhaps a living warning of the times we are living in. And it all starts with a story that, until recently, was only whispered among residents of the region. But now it is beginning to attract the attention of scholars, archaeologists, and religious leaders. What fishermen are witnessing in the Sea of Galilee can no longer be ignored. What if this is all linked to ancient prophecies? What if what is emerging from the waters is a real sign, directly connected to Scripture? This is why staying informed about the mysteries of the Bible's lost places is so important. It's not just about curiosity. It's about understanding what may be unfolding before our eyes. With each new piece of evidence, a piece of sacred history is fitted into place. The Sea of Galilee, like the Garden of Eden, the Tower of Babel, and other biblical sites, are not just symbols of the past. They are markers of something that is still in motion. If you believe that there is something bigger behind these stories, if you feel that these places still have something to say, then follow this journey carefully. What comes next may challenge everything you know about this sacred sea. To not miss the next discoveries, take the opportunity now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This ensures that you are among the first to receive content about the Bible's deepest mysteries and the signs that still echo in its holy places. Let's continue. If you've ever wondered if the miracles described in the Bible really happened, if there are even physical traces of where they occurred, or if all of this has been erased by history, then what we're going to reveal here will speak directly to you. And we are not dealing with fiction, nor with free or exaggerated interpretations. We are talking about a sacred place, mentioned several times in the Scriptures, the Sea of Galilee, a scene of miracles that still gives goosebumps to those who approach it, and which holds enigmas that defy human understanding. Perhaps you, like many, grew up hearing stories about Jesus walking on water, about miraculous fishing, or about the storm being calmed with a single word. But what you may not know is that there are people who live near the Sea of Galilee and claim that similar events still occur. We are not just talking about natural phenomena, but about sensations, sounds, appearances, and events that seem to carry the same energy as the biblical accounts. The same place that witnessed miracles in the past is still today a source of reports that give even the most skeptics chills. It is exactly at this point that many wonder, did the supernatural never leave there? Could it be that the Sea of Galilee not only represents the past of Christian faith, but is also an active portal between the spiritual and the physical? A place where the layers of time overlap, and where prophecies are perhaps silently being fulfilled? These questions are not rhetorical. They are made by scholars, theologians, and archaeologists who try to understand why so many manifestations are concentrated there, in a single body of water, apparently common, but spiritually charged. There are fishermen in the region who report mysterious lights appearing beneath the surface of the water at night. Others describe voices that echo with no visible origin, and waves that appear suddenly, even on days of complete calm. And most impressively, many of these reports coincide with specific dates on the biblical calendar. What does this tell us? Could we be facing a place that continues to react to the divine presence? A space where spiritual time and human time still intertwine? Think for a moment. If the places mentioned in the Bible are real, and most recent archaeological discoveries have confirmed this, why would the Sea of Galilee be any different? Why not consider that the events described in the Gospels left not only historical, but spiritual marks, which are still there, waiting to be recognized? The place where Peter walked by faith and almost sank by fear. The same place where Jesus calmed the winds with his voice. That place exists, and it is before us, loaded with unanswered questions. Science tries to look for natural explanations. Geography studies the behavior of water. But what about what cannot be measured with instruments? What about the spiritual weight one feels when standing in front of a sacred place? The Bible never treated the Sea of Galilee as just a dot on the map. She portrays it as a stage for divine encounters, a symbol of faith that sustains and challenges, reveals and tests. This is why every report coming from that place cannot be dismissed. These are clues, fragments of something bigger. And when we look at all of these elements together, the geography, the history, the modern testimonies, and the biblical narrative, we realize that the Sea of Galilee is much more than a memory. It is a living place where the spiritual seems to touch the natural continuously. And if that's true, what else could be hiding there? Many people are rediscovering their faith based on these signs, not by chance, but because something is moving. The scriptures warn us that in the last days, many truths would be revealed, many mysteries would be unraveled, and maybe, just maybe, this sea is one of those truths that is about to emerge from the waters after centuries of silence. Have you ever felt that certain passages in the Bible seem to take on new meaning these days? That some stories that once seemed symbolic are connecting to real, tangible events? This connection is what keeps this channel alive. The search is not just for content, but for understanding. And if you've made it this far, you probably feel the same way. It probably carries with it a desire to understand more, to see beyond the letters, to find the signs left by God throughout history, in specific locations, in sacred lands. The Sea of Galilee is just one part of that journey, but it is a key point, a spiritual landmark that still pulses. That's why your presence here is so important. Because this video, this channel, this investigation, all of this doesn't exist without people like you who aren't content with the obvious. What they seek. Who question. Who believe that there is much more hidden behind the biblical accounts than we have been taught. And it is precisely this restlessness that moves us to continue exploring lost places, forgotten ruins, archaeological discoveries, and evidence that reinforces faith. You are in a space where questions are welcome, where healthy doubt leads to discovery, and where every story, no matter how simple it may seem, can be the key to something much greater. And if you've come this far, feeling that the topic touched you in some way, that it awakened your curiosity or rekindled your faith, then write in the comments. Leave a record of what you think about this. It could be one word: mystery, sacred, prophecy, or simply Sea of Galilee. This is enough to let us know that you are on this quest with us. Now, let's continue. because what was seen there recently could be one of the most important pieces of this investigation. The Sea of Galilee, also known as Lake of Gennesaret, or even as Lake of Tiberias, has always occupied a special place in the pages of the Bible. Its mention runs through the Gospels, highlighting it as the scene of supernatural encounters, miraculous cures and divine manifestations that deeply marked the Christian faith. But surprisingly, what many do not know is that this same place, millennia after the biblical accounts, continues to generate inexplicable testimonies. And now, with an increasing volume of records, it is once again attracting the attention of not only scholars of the faith, but also researchers, archaeologists, and curious people from all over the world. Over the past few years, several researchers, both secular and religious, have turned their eyes to this region. With satellite images, excavations on the banks, and reports from local residents, a new pattern began to emerge. A pattern that suggests the Sea of Galilee may be much more than a symbol of the past. It may be a living source of spiritual mysteries. What once appeared to be just a serene and peaceful landscape is now studied as a territory of unusual activity, both physical and spiritual. Geographically, the Sea of Galilee is located in the north of Israel, surrounded by hills and small villages that preserve very ancient traditions. It is fed primarily by the Jordan River, and its relatively modest size, about 13 miles long by 7 miles wide, contrasts with the immense weight it carries in spiritual significance. Even with its calm waters, often described in biblical accounts as agitated by sudden storms, there is something there that seems to transcend the simple meteorological explanation. It is as if the forces that acted in that place 2,000 years ago were still moving in its depths. The constant presence of unexplained phenomena recorded around the lake draws attention. What is most impressive is not just the type of phenomenon, but the frequency with which they are reported. There are ancient records that speak of voices in the wind, figures that walk on the water at dawn, fishermen who claim to have seen bluish lights emerging from the bottom of the lake, and even sounds such as songs or prayers sung in extinct languages. And this is not recent. These stories span generations. The most curious thing is that many of these testimonies are repeated with similar details, even coming from people who have never met each other or who do not even share the same faith. These patterns caused universities and research centers, focusing on biblical archaeology, to take a more serious look at the region. Some scholars have even proposed that there may be ruins submerged beneath the lake, remains of ancient structures linked to communities from the time of Jesus, or even traces of civilizations prior to the Roman period. There are even theories that suggest that the bottom of the Sea of Galilee may hide fragments of sites described in apocryphal texts or in Jewish oral traditions, which have not reached us with such clarity. This type of speculation, although unproven, has driven expeditions and new analyses using modern technology, such as aquatic probes and submersible drones. Even more intriguing are the historical maps that show variations in the shape of the lake, especially in times of extreme drought. There are ancient cartographic records that indicate that some areas that are now submerged were once exposed, and that mysterious artifacts were found in them, objects with Hebrew and Greek inscriptions, fragments of amphorae, stones carved with religious symbols. These items, although few, suggest that the region may have been more spiritually active than previously imagined, perhaps even more important than the scriptures directly let on. And when we look at these accounts together, it is impossible not to think about the direct connection to biblical events. Think about it. Why would Jesus have performed so many miracles right there? Why would I have chosen that body of water as the setting for such memorable moments as the multiplication of loaves, the miraculous fishing, or the walk on water? It wouldn't be a coincidence. There are scholars who believe that the Sea of Galilee carries an activated spiritual field, perhaps a meeting point between the human and the divine, between the visible and the invisible. This kind of idea may seem bold, but when placed side by side with contemporary testimonials, it starts to make more sense than it seems at first glance. The region's fishermen themselves, many of them with family roots that go back centuries in that land, tell stories that their grandparents already told, and which today, inexplicably, happen again. They matter-of-factly recount experiences that, to an outside observer, sound almost like modern miracles. Hammocks that fill up on silent nights, even after empty hours. Fish that appear in species that do not naturally inhabit those waters. Lights that hover over the surface with no apparent source. They are living, repeated, and consistent testimonies. And even when not rationally understood, they have an impact. The question is, are we facing natural phenomena that have not yet been explained, of psychological effects caused by deep beliefs? Or is there really a spiritual dimension that manifests itself there in a more intense way? These are the questions that drive this channel. Because more important than immediate answers is the willingness to investigate, to ask the right questions, to look at the Bible not just as a book of the past, but as a guide to understanding the present and what is yet to come. And if you're watching this far, it's because that same restlessness lives within you. Maybe you've already felt that certain places carry something different. Perhaps you have visited a place and felt an atmosphere that was heavy, or light, or deeply spiritual. Perhaps you have never been to Israel, but you carry within you an inexplicable certainty that there is still something to be revealed there. If this is your case, you are in exactly the right place. This channel exists for people like you who are not content with the surface, who want to delve deep into the mysteries hidden between the pages of the Bible and the remains that remain, scattered around the world. Write in the comments what you think about this. Do you believe that the Sea of Galilee really holds an active spiritual mystery? Have you ever felt or heard about places that provoke different sensations, almost as if the sacred were palpably present? You can comment on a word that represents what you felt when seeing this content. Presence, mystery, manifestation, or even revelation. If you want, share your experience. Your voice is part of this journey. And what comes next may surprise you even more. Continuing with everything that has been revealed so far, we come to a part that is perhaps the most impactful of this entire investigation: the real reports. And they are not ancient reports, lost in the books of history or in the pages of dusty manuscripts. These are current, living reports told by simple people, but who live on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, in direct contact with these sacred waters. Fishermen, boatmen, locals, men and women who are not interested in fame, spotlight, or theories. They are just trying to understand what they see, what they feel, and often what they can't explain. They are witnesses of events that go beyond common sense and invite us to dive into a dimension where the spiritual and the earthly touch with an undeniable force. Among the residents of Capernaum, Tiberias, Ein Gev, and other villages around the lake, there is a kind of silent respect for the waters. Many grow up listening to stories told by their grandparents, who in turn heard them from their parents and so on for generations. These stories tell of lights that appear in the night, not reflected stars, not lanterns or distant vessels, but lights that emerge from the bottom, move gently, and then disappear without a trace. Some of these lights are described as intense, blue, others with golden tones, as if they were small submerged torches. What is most impressive is that, despite so many different people reporting these phenomena, the details tend to coincide. They always appear between 2 and 3 in the morning, always in the same region of the lake, and generally during periods of religious festivals or significant dates in the Hebrew calendar. An elderly fisherman named Eliyahu reported in a local radio interview that he once saw one of these lights move directly beneath his boat. He says he felt the hull vibrate slightly, as if something was approaching from beneath the surface, but there was no wind. The sea was calm, and there were no fish. It was as if that part of the lake was alive. He stated with conviction that it wasn't the first time he had seen this, and that there are fishermen who don't even like to talk about the subject. Because it's scary, he said, but also because it seems like something sacred. something that shouldn't be disturbed with banal words. These words were engraved in the minds of those who heard them. Fear and reverence. A mixture that we only feel when faced with the unknown or the sacred. Another report came from a young fisherman named Amir, who was recently returning from a night fishing trip when he heard, from mid-water, a sound similar to that of a horn being blown, something very similar to the sounding of the shofar, the Hebrew ceremonial instrument used in prophetic events and biblical solemnities. He stopped the boat, looked around, but there was no one. No vessels, no temples nearby, no natural reason for that sound to be coming from there. He said that, at that moment, he felt an intense chill, as if a presence was there with him. When reporting this to his community, he heard others confirm that they had also heard similar sounds. And most surprising, some identified the pattern of the notes played, saying they resembled the tones used on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, a period associated with judgment, renewal, and prophecies. These testimonies are not restricted to fishermen. Christian and Jewish travelers visiting the site have also reported unusual experiences. A woman, in a group of pilgrims from Latin America, said in a video that when she touched the water on the banks of Ein Gev during the early hours of the morning, she felt a current of energy run up her arm. She said it was like a gentle shock, not painful, but emotionally charged. She started crying immediately, and according to her, she couldn't explain why. He said it wasn't just emotion from the trip, but a clear feeling that someone was there, watching, welcoming. The video went viral in prayer groups and generated dozens of comments from people who had gone through something similar. There are even video recordings, filmed by tourists and even independent drones, which show strange distortions in the images captured over the Sea of Galilee. In some parts, the waters seem to emit a fine mist that is not visible to the naked eye. In others, shadows move beneath the surface in circular paths. A curious case happened to a group of young people who were broadcasting live at dusk and recorded a bright point appearing out of nowhere, moving in a zigzag pattern until it disappeared. The footage was analyzed by video editors who found no manipulation, cuts, or overlapping effects. Once again, the only plausible explanation given by those who were there was, "It's something that cannot be understood with reason." All of this has drawn the attention of researchers who work on the intersection between biblical archaeology and contemporary records. Many are convinced that popular testimonies can no longer be ignored. Popular wisdom often precedes scientific evidence. And if something has been reported by different cultures, at different times, with the same standards, perhaps it is time to look at these signs with the eyes that the Bible has always taught us to use, spiritual eyes. The Sea of Galilee remains a living enigma, a place where past and present meet, where the sound of the wind can hold secrets, where the water, apparently calm, is perhaps closer to the sky than we can imagine. There is a call in the air, and those who have the sensitivity to listen know it. If you've heard of something similar or have a theory about what could be happening in these sacred waters, write in the comments. It can be something simple like "I believe," or a word that sums up your sensation. Sign, sound, presence, mystery. If you have experienced something spiritual in a specific place, share it. Let's build this map of experiences together. Your story can help reveal another piece of this great spiritual puzzle that we are unraveling. What makes the Sea of Galilee so special within the biblical narrative? Why was this small lake, isolated between hills in northern Israel, the scene of so many miracles, revelations, and decisive moments in Jesus' ministry? When we analyze in depth what the scriptures reveal, we realize that nothing is by chance. Each scenario described in the Bible carries not only a geographical but a spiritual meaning. And the Sea of Galilee is one of those places where the earth seems to touch the sky, where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, and where the waters become silent witnesses of divine manifestations that echo to this day. In the Gospels, the Sea of Galilee is more than a backdrop. It is a character. It is there that Jesus calls his first disciples, simple men,
fishermen who cast their nets and never imagined that they would be called to fish for men. It is there that Peter's faith is tested in one of the most emblematic episodes of
the New Testament. In Matthew 14:22-33, we read the account of the storm that threatened the disciples' boat. As the winds blow strongly and the waves crash violently, Jesus appears walking on the water. Yes, on the waters of the Sea of Galilee. Peter, boldly, asks to go to him, and, for a few moments, he walks too. But when fear takes over, it starts to sink in. Jesus holds him and questions him. "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" This scene, so well known and powerful, did not happen anywhere. It was precisely in this sea, where so many modern reports describe mysterious lights, strange sounds, and inexplicable phenomena. It is as if the spiritual marks of that miracle still remained there, invisible to ordinary eyes, but felt by those who are sensitive, as if every drop of those waters carried memory, energy, power. After all, how can we explain that, even after so many centuries, so many contemporary reports point to the same region with the same intensity? Another striking moment is found in chapter 6 of the Gospel of John. Jesus there performs the miracle of the multiplication of the loaves and fishes, one of the most cited events in preaching and biblical studies. With just 5 loaves and 2 fish, he feeds a multitude. And right after this miracle, again, we see Jesus crossing the sea. The disciples leave by boat, and during the crossing, they are surprised once again. And when they had sailed about 25 or 30 furlongs, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and approaching the boat, and they were afraid. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." John 6:19-20. These episodes are loaded with symbols: human fear, divine power, tested faith, and the revelation of the Messiah, not only as a master, but as the one who dominates even the elements of nature. But why the Sea of Galilee? Why not another river, another lake, some other place? The answer may lie in the prophetic meaning that is constructed throughout the scriptures. In Hebrew culture, water has always been a symbol of transition, revelation, and purification. The sea represents the unknown, chaos, but also the place where God shows his absolute dominion. From Genesis, when the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, to Revelation, where we speak of a new heaven and a new earth where there will be no more sea. The waters accompany divine manifestations as a kind of mirror of the invisible. On the Sea of Galilee, Jesus does not just calm storms or multiply food. He reveals himself as the Son of God, the one who is not subject to the elements, but who commands them. This sea witnesses the transfiguration of reality in the face of spiritual power. And perhaps for this reason, it continues to be a place where the spiritual manifests itself in such an intense way, even today. It would not be an exaggeration to think that, on some level, that physical space still carries the vibration of the words spoken by Christ, the sound of his steps on the water, the presence of the supernatural that revealed itself there. It is curious to note that many of the modern reports that come from the region, lights that appear from the background, mysterious sounds and inexplicable appearances, take place in exactly the same areas mentioned in the Gospels. What's more, many of these events coincide with weekly Torah readings or dates on the biblical calendar that commemorate Jesus' deeds. Could it be a coincidence? Or are we facing a spiritual continuity that has never been interrupted? What seems clear is that this place has not lost its importance. It didn't just become a tourist spot. For many who visit the Sea of Galilee with an open heart, the experience goes beyond the landscape. There are those who say they feel peace when touching the water. Others say they heard something they can't explain. And there are those who neither heard nor saw anything, but returned transformed, as if they had received an interior, silent, profound visitation. This leads us to believe that miracles were not just one-off events, they were signs. signals that may still be being sent. And you who are here, following every detail, perhaps you started this video with curiosity, but you are already realizing that there is something bigger being revealed. Maybe you're feeling like there's more behind every word, every passage, every testimony. Perhaps this journey is awakening in you a new perception about the sacred places mentioned in the Bible. And if that's the case, share your impression. Write in the comments what touched your heart the most. It could be a word like faith, miracle, signs, or even a phrase like, "The waters still speak." Your comment can strengthen other people who are also on this quest. And together, we will continue investigating what else the Sea of Galilee and the mysteries of the Word still has to show us. The Sea of Galilee is not just a sacred place because of the biblical miracles that occurred there. It has attracted the attention of modern scholars for physical evidence and real anomalies that suggest that there is still much to be revealed beneath its waters. Science and archaeology have been getting closer and closer to the biblical narratives, and what has been found is, to say the least, intriguing. Israeli researchers, for example, identified a submerged formation at the bottom of the lake, a circle-shaped structure about 70 meters in diameter and more than 10 meters high, made up of large stones carefully stacked. This construction, discovered through probes and sonar images, does not appear natural. It was made by human hands, but by whom and for what purpose? Studies indicate that this structure may be thousands of years old. Some archaeologists link it to the Bronze Age period, suggesting that it may predate even the biblical records of the New Testament. Was this monument some kind of ancient altar, a ceremonial center, or a forgotten foundation of an ancient river town? No answer is definitive. But the fact that something so immense has been hidden there for so long raises an important question. Why does this place hold so many secrets? And even more, why do many people not want this type of information to become public? Some researchers claim that there is a certain institutional resistance to deepening excavations there. The official justification is technical difficulty and environmental risk. But there are those who say that the real reasons go beyond that. There are theories that there are more submerged structures yet to be revealed, and that some of these discoveries could reopen historical and religious questions that many prefer to keep buried. These are ideas that, although not proven, gain strength due to the amount of testimonies and evidence that emerges around the lake. In addition to physical formations, there are recent records of unusual changes in the behavior of water. Research from the University of Haifa shows that even on windless days, circular currents form in the middle of the lake, always close to the area of the submerged structure. Satellite images captured these movements and classified them as hydrodynamic anomalies. In other words, something there does not obey natural laws as it should. It is also important to highlight reports of magnetic interference. Electronic devices used for diving and studies in the region have frequently failed in certain parts of the lake. Equipment that works perfectly in other locations stops operating when it approaches submerged formations. This raises a new hypothesis. Among alternative researchers, would there be an energetic or magnetic influence on that area? And if there is, where does it come from? There are parallels being drawn with other sacred sites in the world, where ancient ruins also emit different electromagnetic readings, such as at Mount Sinai, or even in the plains near the Dead Sea, where the Qumran scrolls were found. Some experts believe that certain places hold a kind of spiritual signature, something that we still don't fully understand, but which leaves noticeable traces on subtle levels, sometimes even physical. This link between the biblical accounts and current evidence from the Sea of Galilee is too strong to ignore. When the scriptures speak of miracles at this lake, perhaps they are referring not just to occasional acts of power, but to a specific location that was already, and perhaps still is, spiritually charged. A point where heaven and earth connect directly. And when we cross this with the physical data that has been revealed, everything begins to take on a new shape. Closer, more real, more urgent. That's why so many scholars, documentary filmmakers and truth seekers have turned their attention to this small lake in northern Israel. They are not just trying to understand the past, they are trying to decipher the present. They are looking for answers that may be there, hidden beneath the waters, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Maybe that's why so many spiritual reports, apparitions, and strange phenomena continue to happen there, centuries after Jesus' passage on those shores. If this type of information awakens in you a feeling of search, doubt, or even renewed faith, write in the comments. Share what you think about these findings. Do you believe there is something hidden at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee? Have you heard of these theories? Comment on phrases like, "Science is discovering faith," "There's something hidden there," or just say what caught your attention. The most in this excerpt. This helps us to continue investigating and bringing to light the forgotten mysteries of the Bible. What if everything we have revealed so far is just the surface of something even deeper, more ancient, and more connected to eternity than we can imagine? What if the Sea of Galilee, known to many only as a beautiful and touristy place, is actually a kind of active spiritual point, a gateway between the visible and the invisible, between the natural and the supernatural? What if all these reports we hear, lights emerging from the waters, inexplicable voices at dawn, silent apparitions, on nights of total calm, are real manifestations of a mystery that still pulses right where Jesus walked, talked, healed, and transformed lives? It's not hard to understand why so many people are attracted to this place. Not just because of its historical value or natural beauty, but because there is something there that touches the spirit. The Sea of Galilee is not just a memory. He seems to carry a presence. And this presence manifests itself subtly for some, intensely for others. Many visitors report that, as they approach the shore, they feel something different in the air. A weight. A different silence. A feeling that they are not alone, as if there were still echoes of Jesus' footsteps among the waves, as if the waters had kept the memory of everything that happened there. This is why the question cannot be avoided. Is the Sea of Galilee still trying to communicate with us? Could it be that the signs that have been appearing there are more than natural phenomena or coincidences? What if they are spiritual alerts, invitations to reflection, reminders that the divine plan is still underway? Because the truth is that each generation, throughout history, has approached the Bible with its own doubts and challenges, but also with his thirst for revelations. And perhaps in this time in which we live, the Sea of Galilee is once again attracting the attention of those who still believe and those who are rediscovering their faith. The connection between the biblical past and current events is not something to be ignored. When we look at a place where so many miracles have happened and see that it continues to be the scene of supernatural experiences, we cannot simply close our eyes. We need to ask ourselves, what does God still want to show us there? Is there a new revelation for that time? Are we willing to listen? Many scholars, theologians, and even ordinary people have felt that we are entering a new era of spiritual discovery. An era in which biblical places come back to life, in which sacred places, previously seen only as symbols of the past, become channels of divine communication in the present. What if the Sea of Galilee is among those chosen spots? What if something is being activated there that connects with ancient prophecies, with the end times, with the preparation for something that is to come? These are not simple questions, and you are not expected to have all the answers right now. But perhaps it is precisely this uncertainty that brings us closer together. Because true faith is not only based on ready answers, but also on the willingness to ask questions, to investigate, to look at an old scene with new eyes, to feel that, yes, it is possible that that sea is speaking. May those waters be sending us messages, and that all of this is part of a much bigger plan than what we see. If you've made it this far in this video, it's because something in you also feels this restlessness. Maybe you can't explain exactly what it is, but you feel like there's something in the air. Something in the Sea of Galilee that surpasses logic, that defies science, that touches the soul. Something that might be waiting for people like you, curious, open, thirsty for something true. And now I want to hear from you. What do you think is happening on the Sea of Galilee? Do you believe these signs are real, that something spiritual is in motion there? Write in the comments your perception, your theory, or even a word that represents what you felt listening to all this. It could be presence, signs, call, or mystery. You could even write, "I believe the waters still talk." This type of comment not only helps with engagement, but also builds a community of people who think and feel like you. And that is powerful. Let's continue together. What comes next may delve even deeper into this mystery. What if everything you've seen so far is just the beginning of something even deeper, more mysterious, more disturbing? The Sea of Galilee may be just one piece of a much larger puzzle. A puzzle that, when put together, reveals not just forgotten facts of biblical history, but spiritual truths that have been sealed away for centuries. What would happen if the reports that echo from those waters are, in fact, part of a network of signs that connect with other locations also mentioned in Scripture? What if every place mentioned in the Bible is, at this very moment, emitting some kind of response, a kind of spiritual call, that few are paying attention to notice? There are places described in the Bible that cause more than fascination. They cause disquiet. Places that were the scene of events so grand, so beyond human understanding, that to this day they provoke debates among scholars and theologians. And one of these places, often forgotten or avoided, is the famous Valley of Rephaim. A valley shrouded in mystery, mentioned in passages that talk about the giants of antiquity, known as the Rephaim. A people who, according to biblical accounts, had above normal height and strength, and who were associated with corrupted lineages and supernatural events in the pre-flood era. Now imagine that this valley still exists. Imagine that there are modern records of strange sounds coming from underground, of giant marks in the ground, of archaeological remains that have never been officially explained. What if I told you that some believe that this place is still spiritually active? As if what happened there in the past was still influencing the present? Would you be prepared to dive into this investigation? If this video moved you in some way? If something that was said here aroused your curiosity, reinforced your faith, or even made you see the Bible with new eyes, then this is your place. Here, we investigate the mysteries hidden between the lines of Scripture, explore the sacred places forgotten by time, and give voice to the signs that many ignore. If you feel like you are part of this journey, subscribe to the channel now. This ensures that you receive firsthand each new chapter of this investigation, each new discovery that could change everything we know about the places mentioned in the Word. The next step on this journey takes you to an even more enigmatic place. Imagine walking through the same lands where John the Baptist preached and baptized, where the words that prepared the way for the Messiah echoed. In the next video, we will investigate whether this location, mentioned in the Gospels, can still be visited today. The evidence is staggering, and what we reveal may change your view of this pivotal point in biblical history. You'll want to see this.